Good morrow, scholars. Welcome again to Shiver. Um, I'm thinking about making the schedule Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Sunday I read these two. Tuesday I read two different books. Thursday I go back to these two, and then Saturday I go back to the other two. And then I guess on days that I'm feeling up to it, whichever two books are doing the best on here, I'll read those on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I feel like it. And I don't mean like I don't feel like putting in the effort. If I feel like I can put in the effort is what I mean. Anyway, we're in chapter 28, Grace, 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, I'm standing again because, yeah. School felt like an alien planet on Monday. It took me a long moment of sitting behind the wheel of the Bronco, watching the students milling on the sidewalks and the cars circling the lot, and the buses filling neatly into place, to realize that school hadn't changed. I had. "You have to go to school," Sam said, and if I hadn't known him, I wouldn't have heard the hopeful, questioning note. I wondered where he would go while I was sitting in class. "I know," I replied, frowning at the multicolored sweaters and scarves trailing into the school, evidence of winter's approach. It just seemed so... What it seemed was irrelevant, disconnected from my life. It was hard to remember what was important about sitting in a classroom with a stack of notes that would be meaningless by next year. Beside me, Sam jumped in surprise at the driver's side, as the driver's side door came open. Rachel climbed into the Bronco with her backpack, shoving me across the bench seat to make room for herself. She slammed the door shut and let out a big sigh. The car seemed very full with her in it. "Nice truck." She leaned forward and looked over at Sam. "Ooh, a boy. Hi, boy, Grace. I'm so hyper. Coffee? Are you mad at me?" I'm confused. I leaned back in surprise, blinking. "No." "Good, because when you didn't call me in forever, I figured you'd either died or were mad at me. And you're obviously not dead, so I thought it was the mad thing." She drummed her fingers on the steering wheel. "But you are ticked at Olivia, right?" "Yes," I said, although I wasn't sure if it was still true. I remembered why we fought, but I couldn't really remember why it had been meaningful. "No, I don't think so. It was stupid." "Yeah, I thought so," Rachel said. She leaned forward and rested her chin on the steering wheel so that she could look at Sam. "So, boy, why are you in Grace's car?" Despite myself, I smiled. I knew what Sam was needed to be a secret, but Sam himself didn't have to be, did he? I was suddenly filled with the need for Rachel to approve of him. "Yeah, boy," I said, craning my neck to see Sam right beside me. He wore an expression caught somewhere between amusement and doubt. "Why are you in my car?" I would have a hard time answering. I know that for a fact. "I'm here for visual interest," Sam said. "Wow," Rachel replied, "like long-term or short-term?" For as long as I'm interesting." He turned his face into my shoulder for a moment in a wordless gesture of affection. I tried not to smile like an idiot. "Oh, it's that way, is it? Well then, I'm Rachel, and I'm hyper, and I'm Grace's best friend," she said and stuck her hand out to him. She was wearing rainbow-colored fingerless gloves that stretched up to her elbows. I feel like I knew somebody that wore those when I was younger. Oh well. My vision started going dark. Not the best thing that happened when you're standing up and reading. Sam shook her hand. "Sam?" "Nice to meet you, Sam. Do you go here?" When he shook his head, Rachel took my hand and said, "Yeah, I didn't think so." "Well then, I'm going to steal this nice person from you and take her to class because we're going to be late and I have lots of stuff to talk about with her, and she's missed out on so much freaky wolf stuff because she's not talking to her other best friend. So you can see we have to go. I would say I'm not normally this hyper, but I kinda am. Let's go, Grace." Sam and I exchanged looks, his eyes fleetingly worried, and then Rachel opened the door and pulled me out. Sam slid behind the wheel. For a second I thought he might kiss me goodbye, but instead he glanced at Rachel before resting his fingers on my hand for a moment. His cheeks were pink. Rachel didn't say anything, but she smiled crookedly before pulling me toward the school. She wiggled my arm. So that's why you haven't been calling, huh? The boy is super cute. What is he, homeschooled? As we pushed through the school doors, I looked over my shoulder at the Bronco. I saw Sam lift a hand in a wave before he started to back out of the parking space. Yeah, he is, on both counts, I said. Sorry. More on that later. What's going on with the wolves? Rachel dramatically clutched her arms around my shoulders. Olivia saw one. It was up on their front porch, and there were claw marks, Grace, on the door. Creep factor. As much as I'd love to be near wolves like that, I think I would be disconcerted if there were claw marks on the door. I halted in the middle of the hallway. Students behind us made irritated noises and pushed around us. I hope it's not what's-his-face, Jack. Was that it? Wanting to turn her into a werewolf. Where was I? Students behind us made irritated noises and pushed around us. I said, wait, at Olivia's house? No, at your mom's. Rachel shook her head and peeled off her rainbow gloves. Yes, at Olivia's house. If you guys would stop fighting, she could tell you herself. What are you fighting about anyway? It pains me to see my peeps not playing nice with each other. I used to have peeps. I told you, it's just stupid stuff. I said, I kind of wanted her to stop talking so I could try and think about the wolf at Olivia's house. Was it Jack again? Why at Olivia's? Well, you guys need to start getting along because I want you both to go over, or to go with me over Christmas break. And that's not that far off, you know. I mean, not really once you start planning stuff. Come on, Grace, just say yes, Rachel wailed. Maybe. It wasn't really the wolf at Olivia's that bothered me. It was the claw marks bit. I needed to talk to Olivia and find out how much of this was real and how much of it was Rachel's love of a good story. Is this about the boy? He can come, I don't care, Rachel said. The hall was slowly emptying. The bell rang overhead. We'll talk about it later, I said, and hurried with Rachel into the first period. I found my usual seat and began sorting through my homework. We need to talk. I jerked to attention at the sound of an entirely different voice, Isabel Culpepper's. I hope I'm saying that right. She slid her giant cork heels the rest of the way under the desk and leaned toward me, highlighted hair framing her face in perfect, shiny ringlets. We're sort of in class right now, Isabel, I said, gesturing toward the taped morning announcements playing on the TV at the front of the classroom. The teacher was already at the front of the class, bent over her desk. She wasn't paying attention, but I still wasn't thrilled with the idea of a conversation with Isabel. Best case scenario was that she needed help with her homework or something. I had a reputation for being good in math, so sort of possible. Worst case was that she wanted to talk about Jack. Sam had said that the only rule the pack had was that they didn't talk about werewolves to outsiders. I wasn't about to break that rule. Isabel's face was still wearing a pretty pout, but I saw storms destroying small villages in her eyes. She glanced toward the front of the room and leaned closer to me. I smelled perfume, roses, and summer in this Minnesota cold. It'll only take a second. I looked over at Rachel, who was frowning at Isabel. I didn't really want to talk to Isabel. I didn't really know much about her, but I knew she was a dangerous gossip who could quickly reduce my standing in the school to cafeteria target practice. I wasn't really one who tried to be popular, but I remembered what had happened to the last girl who had gotten on Isabel's bad side. She was still trying to get out from under a convoluted rumor that involved lap dancing in the football team. Why? Privately, hissed Isabel. Across the hall. I rolled my eyes as I pushed out of my desk and tiptoed out the back of the room. Rachel gave me a brief, pained look. I was sure I wore a matching one. Sorry. 2 seconds, that's it, I told Isabel as she shuffled me across the hall into an empty classroom. The corkboard on the opposite wall was covered with anatomical drawings. Someone had pinned a thong over one of the figures. Weird. Yeah, whatever. She shut the door behind us and eyed me as if I would spontaneously break into song or something. I didn't know what she was waiting for. I crossed my arms. Okay, what do you want? I thought I was prepared for it, but when she said, my brother, Jack, my heart still raced. I didn't say anything. I saw him while I was running this morning. I swallowed. Your brother? Isabel pointed at me with a perfect nail, glossier than the hood of the Bronco. Her ringlets bounced. Oh, don't give me that. I talked to him. He's not dead. This is going to be a problem. I briefly wrestled with the image of Isabel jogging. I couldn't see it. Maybe she meant running from her chihuahua. My friend Andrew, if you ever go back, he was teaching me how to play Magic back in the day. I might put a link in the description if I remember. He made me laugh one day when he purposefully, he didn't actually think this is how it's pronounced, but he said Chihuahua as a Chai-hua-hua, and it made me laugh the whole day. Anyway, Isabel pressed on. There was something messed up with him, and don't say that's because he's dead. He's not. Something about Isabel's charming personality, and maybe the fact that I knew Jack was actually alive, made it very difficult to empathize with her. I said, Isabel, it seems to me like you don't need me to have this conversation. You're doing a great job all by yourself. Shut up, Isabel said, which only supported my theory. I was about to tell her so, but the next words stopped me cold. When I saw Jack, he said he hadn't really died. Then he started twitching and said he had to go right then. When I tried to ask him what was wrong with him, he said that you knew. My voice came out a little strangled, sounding. Me? But I remembered his eyes imploring me as he lay pinned beneath the she-wolf. Oh, kinda, yeah. Help me. He had recognized me. Well, it's not exactly a shock, is it? Everyone knows that you and Olivia Marks are freaks for those wolves, and clearly this had something to do with them. So what's going on, Grace? I didn't like the way she asked the question, like maybe she already knew the answer. Blood was rushing in my ears. I was in way over my head. Look, you're upset. I get that, but seriously, get help. Leave me and Olivia out of this. I don't know what you saw, but it wasn't Jack. The lie left a bad taste in my mouth. I could see the reasoning behind the pack's secrecy, but Jack was Isabel's brother. Didn't she have a right to know? I wasn't seeing things, Isabel snapped as I opened the door. I'm going to find him again, and I'm going to find out what your part in all of this is. I don't have a part, I said. I just like the wolves. Now I need to get to class. Isabel stood in the doorway, watching me go, and I wondered what, at the beginning of all this, she had thought I was going to say. She looked almost forlorn, or maybe it was just an act. In any case, I said, Isabel, just get help. She crossed her arms. I thought that's what I was doing. I would feel bad if, that happened with me. What the heck? Chapter 29. Sam. 54 degrees Fahrenheit. What's the limit? Is it like, the temperature water freezes at, or I don't know. While Grace was at school, I spent a long time in the parking lot, thinking about meeting Wild Rachel and wondering what she'd meant by the wolf comment. I debated hunting for Jack, but I wanted to hear what Grace found out at school before I went on any wild goose chase, which is something he probably has done. I didn't quite know how to occupy my time without Grace and without my pack. I felt like someone who has an hour until his bus arrives, not really enough time to do anything important, but too much time to just sit and wait. The subtle cold bite behind the breeze told me I couldn't put off getting on my bus forever. I finally drove the Bronco to the post office. I had the key to Beck's post office box, but mostly what I wanted to do was conjure memories and pretend I'd run into him there. I remembered the day Beck had brought me there to pick up my books for school. Even now I remembered it had been a Tuesday, because back then Tuesdays were my favorite day. I don't remember why. It was just something about the way that you looked like looked like when it was next to the E that seemed very friendly. Always loved going to the post office with Beck. It was a treasure cave with rows and rows of little locked boxes holding secrets and surprises, only for those with the proper key. Never thought about that. With peculiar clarity, I remembered that conversation clearly, down to the expression on Beck's face. "Sam? Come on, bucko." "What's that?" Beck shoved his back ineffectually against the glass door, suffering under the weight of the huge box. "Your brain." "I already have a brain. If you did, you'd have opened the door for me." I shot him a dark look and let him shove against the door a moment longer before I ducked under his arms to push it open. "What is it, really?" "School books. We're going to educate you properly so you don't grow up to be an idiot." I remembered being intrigued by the idea of a school in a box. Just add water and Sam. The rest of the pack was equally intrigued. I was the first in the pack to be bitten before finishing school, so the novelty of educating me was fascinating to the others. For several summers, they all took turns with massive lesson manuals and the lovely ink-smelling new books. They would stuff my brain full all day long. Ulrich for math, Beck for history, Paul for vocabulary, and later science. They shouted test questions at me across the dinner table, invented songs for the timelines of dead presidents, and converted one of the dining room walls into a giant whiteboard that was always written with words of the day and dirty jokes that no one would cop to. When I was done with the first box of books, Beck packed them up and another box came in its place. When I wasn't studying my school in a box, I was surfing the internet for a different sort of education. I surfed for photos of circus freaks and synonyms for the word intercourse. And for answers to why staring at the stars in the evening tore my heart with longing. With the third box of books came a new pack member, Shelby, a tanned, slender girl covered in bruises and stumbling under the weight of a heavy southern accent. I remembered Beck telling Paul, I couldn't just leave her there. Heavens, Paul, you didn't see where she came from. You didn't see what they were doing to her. I'd felt sorry for Shelby, who'd made herself inaccessible to the others. I'd been the only one who had managed to float a life raft to the island that was Shelby, coaxing words out of her and sometimes a smile. She was strange, a breakable animal that would do anything to reassert control over her life. She'd steal things from Beck so that he would have to ask where they'd gone, play with the thermostat to watch Paul get up from the couch to fix it, hide my books so that I would talk with her instead of reading. But we were all broken in that house, weren't we? After all, I was the kid who couldn't bear to look into a bathroom. Beck had picked up another box of books from the post office for Shelby, but they didn't mean the same thing to her that they did to me. She left them to collect dust and looked up wolf behavior online instead. Now here in the post office, I stopped in front of Beck's P.O. box, 730. I touched the chip paint of the numbers, and the 3 was already, or nearly gone, and had been for as long as I'd been coming here. I put the key into the box, but I didn't turn it. Was it so wrong to want this so bad? An ordinary life of ordinary years with Grace, a couple of decades of turning keys into P.O. boxes and lying in bed and putting up Christmas trees in winter. And now I was thinking of Shelby again, and the memories bit sharp as cold next to memories of Grace. Shelby had always thought my attachment to my human life was ludicrous. I still remember the worst fight we'd had about it, not the first or the last, but the most cruel. I was lying on my bed reading a copy of Yeats that Ulrich had bought for me, and Shelby jumped onto the mattress and stepped on the pages of the book, wrinkling them beneath her bare foot. "Come listen to the howls I found online," she said. "I'm reading." "Mine's more important," Shelby said, towering above me, her toes curling and crinkling the pages further. "Why do you bother reading that stuff?" She gestured to the stack of school books on the desk beside my bed. "That's not what you're going to be when you grow up. You're not going to be a man. You're going to be a wolf, so you should be learning wolf things." "Shut up," I said. "Well, it's true. You're not going to be Sam. All those books are a waste. You're going to be alpha male. I read about that. And I'll be your mate, the alpha female." I guess they would be the youngest, so it makes sense. Her face was excited, flushed. Shelby wanted nothing more than to leave her past behind. I ripped Yeats out from beneath her foot and smoothed the page. I will be Sam. I'm never going to stop being Sam. You won't be. Shelby's voice was getting louder. She jumped off my bed and shoved my stack of books over. Thousands of words crashed onto the floor. This is just pretending. We won't have names. We'll just be wolves. I shouted, shut up. I can still be Sam when I'm a wolf. Beck burst into the room then, looking at the scene in his silent way. My books, my life, my dreams spread under Shelby's feet, and me on my bed, clutching my wrinkled Yeats in white-knuckled hands. What's going on here? Beck said. Shelby jerked a finger at me. Tell him he's not going to be Sam anymore when we're wolves. He can't be. He won't even know his name. And I won't be Shelby. She was shaking, furious. Beck's voice was so quiet I could barely hear him. Sam will always be Sam. He took Shelby's upper arm and marched her out of the room, her feet skidding on my books. Her face was shocked. Beck had been careful to never lay a hand on her since she'd come. I'd never seen him so angry. Don't you ever tell him differently, Shelby, or I will take you back where you came from. I will take you back. In the hallway, Shelby began to scream, and she didn't stop until Beck slammed her bedroom door. He walked past my room and paused in the doorway. I was gently stacking my books back on the desk. The words shook in my hands as I did. I thought Beck would say something, but he just picked up a book by his feet and added it to my pile before he left. Later, I heard Ulrich and Beck. They didn't realize there weren't many places in the house a werewolf couldn't hear. You were too hard on Shelby, Ulrich said. She has a point. What is it you think he's going to do with all this wonderful book learning, Beck? It's not as if he'll ever be able to do what you do. There was a long pause, and Ulrich said, What, you can't be surprised. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what you were thinking. But tell me, how did you think Sam would go to college? Another pause. Beck said, summer school, and some online credits. Right, let's say Sam gets his degree. What's he going to do with it? Go to law school online too? And then what kind of lawyer would he be? People put up with your eccentric gone for the winter routine because you were established when you were bitten. Sam will have to try to get jobs that ignore his scheduled disappearance every year. For all the learning you're stuffing in his head, he's going to have to get jobs at gas stations like the rest of us. If he even makes it past 20. You want to tell him to give up? You can tell him. I'll never tell him that. I'm not telling him to give up. I'm telling you to give up. Sam doesn't do anything he doesn't want to. He wants to learn. He's smart. Beck, you're going to make him miserable. You can't give him all the tools to succeed and then let him discover, poof, that he can't use any of them. Shelby's right. In the end, we're wolves. I can read him German poetry, and Paul can teach him about past participles. And you can play Mozart for him, but in the end, it's a long, cold night, and those woods are for all of us. That's morbid. Another pause before Beck answered, sounding tired and unlike himself. Just leave me alone, Ulrich, okay? Just leave me alone. The next day, Beck told me I didn't have to do my schoolwork if I didn't want to, and he went driving by himself. I waited until he was gone, and then I did the work anyway. Now, I wished more than anything that Beck was here with me. I turned the key in the lock, knowing what I'd find. A box stuffed with months' worth of envelopes and probably a slip to collect more from behind the desk. But when I opened the box, there were 2 lonely letters and some junk flyers. Someone had been here. Recently. Well, that's unexpected. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and leave this here, because, as I mentioned in the last video, I like cliffhangers. I wonder who was in there. What was I going to say? Alright, I'm probably going to make the next one about 20 minutes long also. And then I'm going to take a shower and get ready for work. My aunt's coming to visit today, and I have to work the entire time she's here pretty much. So that's kind of a letdown. I wish someone had told me that she was coming to visit. I would have put off going on vacation until she got here, but naturally, by the time someone told me, I had already put in the time 3 weeks before. Anyway, until next time, goodbye everybody. I hope you don't mind the schedule. Guess just easier on me, I don't know. Whoops.